ai tung kuljetës. Shkarko aplikacionin e bankës ProCredit dhe paguaj profi nëpërmjet telefonit mobil Android. ProCredit Bank, shumë profi.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our last speech of the day, our closing keynote of the 9th edition of KosICT here at the ProCredit Bank main stage. Our next topic is a very interesting one, especially for me. I'm a gaming enthusiast, so I'm really looking forward to this. We'll be talking about eSports and the rise of a juggernaut, and our speaker for this session is Michael Liebe, the co-founder, the CEO and founder of Booster Space, also the head of Games Week Berlin. Michael, the virtual floor is all yours. Please continue.
Thanks a lot for the invitation, and don't make me nervous, Dominic. I'm a gamer, yes, but I also am pretty neutral when it comes to esports. I don't earn my money with esports. I earn my money with professional game design and running events for game designers, which might have the advantage that I'm not biased by one of the many fields we have in esports. So please, dear audience, bear with me. I will run through this presentation as the topic is enormous, as the title already hints to. So what are we talking about? We're talking about esports. There's a website called Wikipedia, so the most academic source you can find for a definition. The core point here is sports competition using video games. When we talk about a juggernaut, it's actually something a bit intimidating, but don't be afraid. We don't need to be afraid of these people, right? Who am I and why am I standing here? So as mentioned, I'm CEO and founder of a company called Booster Space, but I'm also on my other hat, which I'm wearing regularly, working for Kickstarter in Europe. So whenever you have a question on the crowdfunding campaign, you want to finance your game on Kickstarter, work with the community on Kickstarter, happy to also be your contact person. You also see in the slides my Twitter handle. So everybody who does like a screenshot or whatever talks about the topics we have here, feel free to use that handle, but also please don't forget to mention KosICT, as usually event organizers are very happy for public sharing of the contents we are talking about. So Michael Liebe, company owner and consultant. I ran and started the Amaze Festival together with Thorsten Wiedemann back in the days, which is an indie games and art festival. I worked at the University of Potsdam, and there I co-founded the Digital Games Research Center. And this is how we looked back in the days. This is how I looked when I was working for the public funding agency called Medienboard Berlin-Brandenburg. And this is what my company does. We run events not only for professional game designers, we also are in the fields of active in the field of virtual reality. All the events we do, we try to create positive emotional experiences. We aim at bringing families, friends, fools together in a safe environment. We feature inspiring personalities, and this year was obviously crazy, not only for me and my company, which runs events, so you can imagine, but for everybody out there. Ever since I read the book, the books of the series Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, this became my motto. This was actually one of the drafts for my company logo. We then went for the heart for obvious reasons, Michael Liebe, but don't panic. Stay calm, everything will be fine even after this crazy year of 2020. In the fields of esports, the event we supported in organizing was the German eSports Summit, which ran in the 4th edition this year in October, which is an event series focusing on policy making surrounding sports and esports. And also in the field of Kickstarter, I see a lot of gadgets, especially, and supporting tools running a Kickstarter campaign for the esports environment. But let's get to the point. So, as I'm pretty sure you're all aware of, and I guess that's why I'm also invited to give this overview of eSports in this technology conference, is eSports is massive. It would be a country bigger than the United States of America. There's a very good resource called Newzoo, a resource source called Newzoo, who do a lot of research in the field of game business, but also have a dedicated report on esports. So most numbers you see are pulled from Newzoo, the Newzoo report. Anyway, 2020, we need to always also then reflect that 2020 was different, and all the prognosis made for this year, most of them didn't occur in the way, obviously, but still, it's a very big field, and it's ever since growing. Interesting, what you see here is the small number is the audience growth. It's roughly a 10% growth year on year. But economically, it's rising and growing 15% per year globally, which not only means it's crazy big, but it also means that people spend more and more money is earned in the field of esports per participant. As you might have guessed, China and the whole of Southeast Asia is the biggest market in esports, also by far. It's also where many competitions actually grew, especially in South Korea. The esports, professional esports has a very long history, similar in the United States. And then we have the $200 million generated in Western Europe. When we talk about esports, we are talking about the bigger picture of games. Remember, I'm an academic, so I like to sort things a bit and put them into perspective, also in comparison to what's happening elsewhere. So we have games, then we have video games, obviously, remember the definition, and then we have pro sports. Pro is important, professional sports making. Not every sport automatically is game-like. The rules not necessarily are so super important if you just go jogging in the park. But professional sports are very rule-heavy. Games are defined by having rules. So we have this field of games. We have video games and we have professional sports, and that's where the sweet spot is of esports. And many things we see in professional sports also happen in esports. So there is a thriving fan culture. There is a massive market for gadgets and tools and supporting equipment. There is even fashion brands focused on this target group and merchandise articles which you can purchase. There's dedicated esports arenas, and there's sort of modern sports bars focusing on esports. So the whole bigger picture of the culture of sports is reflected in esports and happening in esports as well. Even to the degree that there's individual food lines or nutrition brands for esports players. And then there's also side effects or niche cultures such as the speedrunner community, which I personally really adore. They focus on something that we call progressive games, where it's playing the same game, optimizing your performance and exploiting bugs and niches and getting faster and faster in finishing the game. And we also have this as tournaments, but this is not what we usually call esports itself. Because esports are focusing on having a winner out of a match. And this is something that started long ago. One of the crucial milestones that made it then popular on a global scale, and then in a consequence also attractive for brands and sponsors and money, was the internet. You remember these days when you were carrying your big 30 kg monitor, going to your nerdy friends and playing LAN, video games on LAN parties. Those days are gone, almost, today, thanks to the internet. But the internet enabled us to play in real-time multiplayer games. And this then, as we are humans, grew to fighting against each other. So instead of meeting at a certain point to play Street Fighter in a tournament, we could connect on a server and play Quake. And this is then where the whole thing started, and competitions and tournaments were organized and prize money was given out and stuff like that. So it is nothing new. That's my core point. There's a very long heritage of esports, and it's actually quite an interesting story to dig into deeper if you're interested in games. If you are one of the participants of this event who are working in the games industry, or you're thinking of investing potentially in a title that might become esports heavy, always bear in mind, that's why I showed the history, it is something that grew bottom up. You can't necessarily do a top-down approach for esports, but there are surprises. Anyhow, the games that are popular and that work in esports are based on these genres. You know, MOBA, first-person shooter, Street Fighter fighting games, card games, battle royale titles, which is pretty new, and then obviously real-time strategy games such as StarCraft. When I mentioned speedruns, I said the word progressive rule set. The interesting thing is you can cluster most games in two core groups of how the rules are designed and set. One part of it, Jesper, you will came up with these two terms. One part of it is emergent gameplay and emergent rule sets, and the other is progressive. Progressive means you go left to right, sort of. It's more or less a path you need to follow. Emergent rule sets mean that it's like in chess, every match turns out to be different. The replayability value is super high, and you need to put on tactics and strategies to compete. In a real life event, I would now ask the audience, okay, what do we have here and what do we see there? So yeah, we have The Witcher and we have League of Legends. The Witcher is following the progressive rules. You need to go to Village A to do Quest B, to fight against Dragon C. Not necessarily in the clear order, hence progressive and not linear, but you have step-by-steps that you need to follow in order to sort of finish the game. In League of Legends, the map, you see it also in the difference on the map structure. The map is like ideal for two parties fighting against each other, for clashing in the middle. And you can imagine, you can already see here on the map, especially if you focus there, and imagine, okay, one time I will go left, and then I will try a middle, and then I'll go right, or I'll do the flanks and try something else. So it's every party, every match will be different here, which allows us, dear politicians, if you're listening and are wondering why Counter-Strike is one of the best esports, and it's sort of in the core definition a sportive title, is both of them. Soccer, which nobody doubts is sports per definition, and Counter-Strike follow the same rule set of being emergent. And Counter-Strike and soccer have more similarities than actually a match on soft guns or whatever you call them in the forest would have with Counter-Strike. It's the clear map structure is there, the rules are very clear, how you fill out the tactics, how you play together. It's all fitting to a certain map and style and how the team performs together. And this is why Counter-Strike and soccer are very close by, actually. This is again Newzoo, a long list here. The top 25 games by eSports hours watched on Twitch and other popular live streaming services. Why is watching so important? The spectatorship which we have that is crucial for traditional sports is actually very similar in esports. The more viewing hours you have, the higher the sponsorings, the higher the advertisement prices, the more relevant the game, the more players, the more fans you will have. So that's why that's a very good indicator. And there's many different platforms where you can watch and spectate games, which is a side effect sort of, and again, one of these fields where it mixes is watching games and watching esports is very close by, but it is something different. This is another list with the most popular games in general, which is not necessarily then esports related. By far the number one and the most famous, I guess, is League of Legends. I will feature one point out of these many games per slide. So League of Legends by Riot Games, released 2009, more than 10 years old already. Counter-Strike, the original commercial Counter-Strike, you know, it's a mod of Half-Life 2, etc. The original commercial Counter-Strike was released in 2000, in the year 2000. So what is it now, 20 years ago? Enough time to grow a culture in its own. The developer today is called Valve, and it's available on all platforms. And CSGO, we have a tournament here at this event I saw, is like, has the longest tradition actually of professional esports. Then there's a game also from Dota, being inspired by League of Legends, MOBA style game released 2013, Dota 2, which grew awareness in the news because of super high prize monies. You might remember that. A very popular game, Overwatch, by Blizzard. Blizzard also has a long history in competitive gaming with their titles StarCraft 1 and 2. So they could design a game specifically for esports and could be successful with that. But Overwatch also is a very popular game without competition, which makes it very interesting, actually. This was released in 2016. Pubg was the thing where everybody was like, hey, what the F? Where does this suddenly come from? How does this work with the circling, the circle growing smaller, very creative gameplay, and directly became an instant hit, but also was discovered by the players. It wasn't a top-down thing by a bigger publisher saying, you need to play this competitively. No, the players also by themselves designed their competitions around it. I put this on number 5 in the original Newzoo list. It's in the list twice, once with the PC and once with the mobile version. But as I didn't do the separation for the other games, I put these both together, and then they rank on number 5. Hearthstone, again, Blizzard Entertainment. Remember here, Overwatch, then Hearthstone and StarCraft will also come up. They just know how it goes, right? And Hearthstone is actually exceptional. It's one of the very, very few card games which are so successful. All the other games are more action-heavy games. Here we have Rainbow Six Siege by Ubisoft, which was also one of the titles where they said, okay, we want to have something that works for competition. But also remember, the series was launched in 1998. So they have a head start in the brand. People were already playing it a lot, and so they could foster their community. For me as a Westerner, this was actually a surprise. I didn't know this title before. It's super popular in China. It's mobile first, and it's out since 2015 and is on rank 8 in the list of most viewed esports titles. This, I don't need to say much about this. This is like the mega hit in the overall gaming culture. Yet on esports, it's only rank 9, but still in the top 10. And Fortnite is just a phenomenon in itself. By Epic Games. Actually interesting, was also one of the reasons to launch the Epic Game Store. You remember back Counter-Strike, Valve and Half-Life, and then Steam came up. And this is something Epic Games is doing with their Epic Game Store in Fortnite. It's not exclusive yet, but we'll see what happens. Now, finally, Blizzard again, list point number 10, StarCraft 2, which the original game launching in 1998 again. And the one other title I mentioned earlier, Quake, is from 1996. So StarCraft is part of this original family of games creating the culture and phenomena of what we call esports today. An evergreen. It's the same game since 2010. 10 years without like major upgrades like in the more first-person perspective or third-person perspective action games. StarCraft, the real-time strategy game, generally stayed the same over 10 years and it's still a mega hit. This is one similar to PUBG of the surprise titles, Rocket League by Psyonix. Even though I work in the industry for many, many years, I haven't heard about the company before. I didn't know the game Rocket League before. I only discovered it, I don't know, 2018 or something when I saw, okay, this is something big. It was part of the ESL, the Electronic Sports League family. And it's a really cool game. But also like we are humans in the end, right? Cars, big engines and soccer. So surprise, it's a very popular title. That would have been the top 11. I wanted to have this in just to also show, okay, it can happen. There can be surprises happening still in the field of competitive gaming. And this one by Riot Games is growing super fast and is shaking up the industry heavily. It's not in the top 10 yet, not even in the top 25 of the Newzoo list. It was only released this year, 2020. But it's already shaking the Twitch streams up a lot and the tournaments happening and the prize money is poured out. So have an eye out for Valorant from Riot Games. Remember, when we talk about esports, we talk about games, we talk about professional esports, and we talk about video games. As in sports, there is the structure of teams, rights holders, events, and ladders. Ladders are actually important because it enables the noobs, the casual players, the amateurs to rise up from their small local ladder, rising up to the global tournaments. We see the number of players decreasing the more professional it gets, obviously, and we also see the revenue per player increasing the more professional it gets, obviously. But these 4 pillars are very much the same as we would have also in sports without video games. So there's also, sorry for the ugly slide, many associations focusing on the newcomers, on the small teams, enabling local tournaments to happen. Here I selected, as I'm from Germany, German events and organizations. But every country has their little organizations, national organizations and tournaments and stuff. So this could be like copied as a slide for every country. But it's the core, and it's essential for the success of professional esports. Then there's this organization, Olympic Sports Committee, which also has national agencies. And they, in my point of view, compare apples with pears. That's a German saying where you compare two things that are not really comparable, which are similar but not really comparable. When they say, no, esports is not sports because it focuses on bodily skills and bodily performance. Shooting, chess, you know the discussion. But what I want to play now is this experiment. Okay, let's see their line of thought. So the university, the sports university in Cologne, actually started a research program to dig in, and they found no, it's about, actually, it is very heavy on bodily coordination, bodily skills. You need to concentrate a lot. You need to be able to communicate with your team, play tactics and strategy, and cooperate to win. And obviously, you need to be smart or intelligent, as eSports Live puts it. And they found that out in their research. You see here also one of the pictures of the gadgets they use to do their research on hand-eye coordination in this case. And there's also things like APM, actions per minute, which are very crucial for especially real-time strategy games, where you need to do one certain action point to, like, order a troop to go left or right or whatever it is, mine some resources. So imagine in traditional sports, you do 180 actions per every 60 seconds. That's crazy, and this is something that esports players do all the time. And you need to have business skills, as the follow-up title eSports Live Tycoon shows. And there's principles of ethics and morality, which are set up by the global agencies. But here, then, the International Olympic Committee said, no, these rule sets are, it was a different thing, but there's the Global Esports Federation, sorry, which was founded this year. The reaction of the International Olympic Committee was, yeah, no, we don't really like it because it's backed by Tencent. Tencent, the biggest global player when it comes to games business, coming out of China. And then they said, yeah, okay, there's too much mix between business, commercial interest, and the sports. So whenever Tencent decides to go left, the whole sports will go left, and that's, from their point of view, not healthy. Which is a fair point to debate, actually. You remember the rights holders like Riot Games, Blizzard, and all the other big publishers, Epic Games, and Ubisoft, they all also organize their own events. So there is a closer tie between the rights holder and the competitions and the ladders and the tournaments than we would have in traditional sports, actually, where it's associations mainly organizing stuff. I don't want to go into the dark sides of sports associations with this presentation, though. In sports, as in esports, we have the core pillars of income generation is sponsorship, media rights, merchandise and tickets, aka stuff happening at events and tournaments, and hence the media landscape becomes more and more important. Professional TV production is essential, as it is for like the World Cup in soccer, where the bids are like crazily high to show the finals, for example, of the soccer World Cup. But you also need to have professional studios, you need to have professional moderators, a professional setup, and esports is slowly going out of the field of online streaming and online VOD to TV, where the big sports players are at home. The German Soccer Federation decided to start their own league with FIFA and PES, Pro Evolution Soccer. So the big players are going into this esports brand now. The traditional sports actors are going into the esports field now and using their power and their brand knowledge and their budgets also to shake it up a bit. Interesting times actually at the moment. Even Ferrari has their own sports league, esports league. And obviously the #1 driver for viewer numbers, which is regularly compared NFL finals versus, I don't know, League of Legends finals. The viewer numbers of esports are actually higher than NFL, but still they are also going already into esports. Challenging thing is the internet works differently than your traditional linear media. You need to have show elements, yes, but you need to use and exploit technology on a different level. And there's new opportunities also arising there, which is very exciting actually. Then there's also new opportunities arising on how to activate brands, how to exploit sponsorships. You can use fan engagement to a lot higher degree on these channels than you can in broadcast media. And use that. If you are broadcasting your tournament, it's crucial to use the benefits that the modern streaming technologies provide. And also the viewers expect that to be somehow integrated, to be engaged, and to also mix and mingle with and to actually influence the event in a way through polls and quizzes and raffles and pop-ups in the chat, visible for all and stuff like that. That's really exciting actually, and allowing for new opportunities for sponsoring. But in the end, it's the same source of money we would have in traditional sports. It's the same starting point, a big event, and it's the same production type, a studio where we have the experts talking and the players performing as you would have also in other sports. So in the end, please do remember that it's nothing, it's actually on top of it all. The whole esports phenomena is on top of it all. So there's no reason actually to panic. It's more a reason to embrace change and to see, okay, awesome. This is something I can learn from, I can get inspired from, but also that's why I was running so much on the comparison between traditional sports and esports and games overall, that it isn't so complicated. It's not so surprising, actually. We've seen this a lot. We see this happening in soccer all the time. And that's just what's happening in esports. So, yeah, just get inspired and don't panic about it. I actually see that I'm a lot faster because I was nervous to stay in time with my 60 slides. But we still have time for the Q&A. So just if you want to dig deeper in, these are the sources I use to prepare for this presentation. esports.com, Fragster, Sport1, MineMMO, and yeah, esports.com, sorry, for the B2C. And then Esports Observer is one of the biggest platforms where you find B2B news. Then I also showcased News Zoo numbers a lot. They regularly publish reports. And then there's Games Industry Biz, which is a very useful source for the overall games B2B, but also some esports articles to find. And then you have other blogs and sources which Google spits out if you do your research. These would have been like discussion points for a follow-up panel or just to inspire your thinking after the event. So what's actually happening? I showed also newcomers in the list, but also like the traditional powerhouses of esports. But there's more and more content coming out. Remember Valorant shaking up. So the whole overall global game of esports is evolving constantly. The professional sports owners are going more and more into esports. Perhaps you're working in the old industries with your media rights or technology you provide for stadiums or media houses. Perhaps there's an opportunity there as well. Things are going from the internet to TV, yes, but also the whole how to use internet streams is evolving a bit, big time. I skipped this mostly because I want to stay positive in the end, but there is obviously a COVID-19 impact also on esports, and the League of Legends tournament I showed earlier was also happening without audience. The example I had with the different monetization models. That also happened without audience on location, but they still played in the stadium, as we have in, say, soccer, for example, at the moment as well. There's creative needs to toggle, which I would say are there also to stay for next year. So I can only encourage you to stay creative and find solutions for these challenges. And then the big challenge is for the whole ecosystem is that publishers and brand owners are going into the operational fields more and more. This is a big trend in esports, which will also have impact on how the surrounding economy will work. And then the good news in the end, revenue per player is increasing, which means the side markets are there to stay and will actually grow. So that might also be an opportunity. Companion apps, just to say something. So thanks for listening. Here again, my credentials, the website, and at the end of the slides, here's some resources if you want to dig in deeper.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for your insightful information and a real breakdown of the evolution of esports. I really enjoyed that. I'm sure that all our audience enjoyed it as well. You touched upon a few very important games that I've spent numerous hours playing, numerous hours getting angry at. But yeah, that's the nature of esports. Just for the end, I just want to ask you, I'm sure that during the COVID lockdown, you got a few chances to play a few games. What were those games and what are you looking forward to playing in the near future?
Okay, cool. So I'm a bit boring, actually. I play Civilization up and down all the time. So I spend a lot of money on the new Civ add-ons. I just buy everything, no matter what it is, no matter how relevant it is. So I started playing that again. I also installed a bunch of new apps on my smartphone. This morning I thought, okay, I would like to play some Angry Birds again. So I actually downloaded Angry Birds again, which I haven't done for years. Yeah, you're right. There is a lot of time to play around. But mostly, as you see, I improved my setup for streaming a lot. So I bought some lights, a new microphone. I practiced my standing in front of camera stuff. That was more the time I spent in 2020 in the lockdown phases than playing, actually.
Lovely. That was a really nice insight. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us at KosICT. This was a really great keynote to close the 9th edition of KosICT, especially taking into account that tomorrow and the day after tomorrow we'll have the finals of our CSGO tournament. So this was absolutely great. Vielen Dank to you for your time and availability. And I hope that we'll get to meet again and discuss a bit more about gaming and esports in general.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael.
Good luck to the teams tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you so much.